All right, good morning. How to retire in America by 30 or 7 to 10 years. This isn't a joke. It isn't some like lull. There isn't a sales pitch. It's just basic tactics and common sense. Literally anybody with a normal IQ can do this. I'm not kidding. By the way, Freedom Phil, like, subscribe, and always turn up the video speed. You should be watching this video at least at 1.75. If I could go over real quickly why you can't retire, is most people are raised incorrectly. They're raised to do things in the reverse action. You should do it. And then by the age of like 40 or something, then they start teaching you how to do these things way older, like how to save for retirement. But what if you weren't, bogging yourself down at a young age? Like basically you have 13 years in a public school system that doesn't teach you much of anything. After 13 years, you're good enough to do what? Stock dollar stores, flip hamburgers. That doesn't sound like a good use of your 13 years. What if you got a trade or a CDL while you were still in high school? Now, mind you, as a CDL, you need to be 21 to drive OTR, but you can drive intrastate. What if you had a trade? What if you weren't horrifically in debt at a young age? Cars, clothes, a luxury degree. I mean, something like 85% of the degrees most women get are absolutely useless, and a large portion of the ones men get are useless. So what if you just didn't do things in the wrong direction? And they're like, well, what do you mean in the wrong direction? What if you just, lived minimalistically? And when I say minimalistically, like, I can give you the raw numbers. I did a video about this a while ago. How I can live off less than $5K a year. My auto insurance is $27 a month, $15 for laundry, $30 for a cell phone. Gas, when I'm doing van life or trucking, is literally $10, maybe $20 a month, because I don't move much. When I go out to the wasteland, I don't have to move much. So we're talking, let's see, 15 for laundry, 10 for gas, 10 to 20 for gas, 27 for insurance, 30 for a cell phone. And there's probably a few extra things there, like food. I mean, I can get that for free. I can even forage for wild edibles, but I don't suggest that for most of you because you don't know how to do it. So what, $100? We're not even to $200 a month for expenses. Part of the reason I often recommend van life and whatnot. So if you can live off doing van life or, live minimalistically in some way, live off $200 to $300 a month. Well, if you have a decent job, like say you were in high school and you became a plumber, an electrician, you got into the game early. You became an accountant. You could be an accountant by 16. And that's a job you could work from anywhere in the world. You get your clients and then they send their stuff to you digitally. So what's the point of that? When I said earlier, you are taught to work in reverse. You're taught to put yourself into compound interest debt at a very young age. Look at what the average interest rate is for a credit card. In fact, I think that the laws need to be changed. That's criminal that they can charge 25 to 30% interest on a credit card. And they can give somebody who doesn't even know, basic common sense, fresh out of high school, just like mommy and daddy have been paying for everything. And then they're like, hey, there's your student loans. There's your credit card. There's your everything. By the way, there's another thing you should question someday. Why is it most of these degrees that you can learn, you just can't learn them from home? That you couldn't just learn this from home and get the degree because it'd be a lot cheaper. You should question that. But how do you get rich when you're young? And by rich, once again, if you're a minimalist and you have almost no expenses, I don't care whether it's living with your parents or living in a share room, doing van life. I don't care if it's a tent. I don't care how you do it. Living with a bunch of buddies, bunk beds, storage. I don't care how you do it. You get that rent as cheap as possible because the objective of working is so you have profit. Don't want to sound like a Ferengi, but I swear to God, they're my spirit animal. Profit is your objective. So if I live in a truck, and I know truck driving won't be around forever, but plumbing's going to be around for a while. So is electricians. An electrified world, beautiful solar world we're coming into. where they're going to want more EVs, more everything. They're going to be needing more electricians. What about a lineman? These are good jobs. Linemen, you want to see the money, 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 brother. You look at what linemen make. Yeah, it's the real deal. And I do trucking. And why do I do trucking? Because it's a free apartment on wheels. So when I choose to work, I basically don't have to pay rent, utilities, all that. The carrying cost for this house that I'm currently in, I own it. I'm going to turn it into a rental. The carrying cost is quite literally, let's see, about $3,500 a year, so $4,500 if I'm actually here. And then, the basics of food and other stuff. Now, what if I didn't have that? What if this was a rental and it was paying for itself? Because that's why I did the remodel on it. But what if I'd never had this thing slowing me down? Nah, that's what I'm getting at. Housing slows you down. And unless you can pay cash for it, it just is a ball and chain. So that's why I say van life, live in a truck. If my expenses are under $5,000 a year as an OTR trucker, they're more like $2,500. But hey, let's have a few video games and get a drink occasionally. Maybe have a couple good cigars here and there. If my expenses are under $5K a year and I'm making $45 to $50 an hour times 11 hours a day, 70 hours a week, because I work. When I work, I really work, because I don't see the point in working 40 hours. You don't get rich. You don't get anything working 40 hours a week. Live in a state with no state income tax. Why? Because why should you give more money to the government than you have to? Work at a company that has a good profit share. So if you make $100K a year and it's a 10% match once you're fully vested, then effectively you put in 10,000, they put in 10,000, and then most of your federal taxes are being effectively paid by the company. No state income taxes. So you have around $80 plus $1,000, 80 to 90K a year. Let's say 80K a year that you can invest. Think about that. Now, every 100K making 10% on compound interest is $10,000. Why is that important? Because there's a lot of people on Social Security that get less than 20 grand a year. Now, maybe if you add in some benefits and other crap, they get a little bit more. So if you have 300,000 invested when you're young, that's 30 grand a year you're making. And capital gains taxes are less than a lot of other taxes. So the point of it is that if you have a minimalist lifestyle and you work 5-6 years and you're power paying towards your investments, you're the investor class in your early 20s. Because no rent, no utilities, don't try to keep up the Joneses with fancy cars. You effectively will have a retirement set up before you're even 25. Let's say 26, 27 if you take a little time. And then what about the cheap house? Go to the Midwest, go on Google Maps, look up all these little towns all over America, and you can find houses anywhere from 30 to 100K. Old people pass on, the kids don't want to keep the house, because they got a life somewhere else. So you can pick up a really good house for I got a brother who picked up a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom for $50K in Oklahoma. And that was a couple of years ago. So what's the point of that? That's still there. I saw places, I do this thing where I go online occasionally and I'll look at just random towns in the Midwest, the South, Texas, wherever. And I see what a house costs. And you'll see places for a 2-bedroom for 50 grand. A nice 2-bedroom. And some of those 2 bedrooms, if they're big enough, you could add another bedroom. If you got a 3-bedroom that has 1 bath, if it's big enough, you might be able to add another bathroom. So the point of it is you can get a house with 1 year of work as a trucker and as a plumber. Just you got to avoid paying rent or utilities. What about cars? Part of the reason I recommend working from home or driving truck is that I've had the same 88 Econoline that I bought with 98,000 miles on it since 2009. And in that time, since 2009, I've only put, I think, 32K on it. So my purchase price was $700, and I put probably $1,300 or so and some tires here and there into my van, a little bit of oil and whatever. So let's go over the whole commuting thing for a moment. Let's say you make a paltry $25 an hour. When I choose to work driving truck, I make $45 to $50 an hour driving OTR. So I think 25 is pretty reasonable if you've got some carpentry skills or something else, because frankly, you need 25 to even make it. But let's say you make $25 an hour. In order to afford your living, you live in the burbs. You live about anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes away. So you just allocate an hour. So $25 an hour times 2 equals $50 a day that you either didn't get paid or pay that much more for rent. Times that by 5 throughout the course of the week, and right there you've got $250. Times that by 50, because 2 weeks off of vacation, 52 weeks in a year, you have $12,500 of unpaid labor that you either didn't get paid for by your boss, or more likely you had to pay more for your housing expenses, whether it's ownership or a rental. That's why I recommend that, one, you live either at work, like when it's something where you can be on site, or you drive truck, or you work from home, or you don't bother doing it. Now, let's take it to the next level. Then you need a car. Honey Poo has her rig. You have your rig. The average price is $700 per vehicle these days. Well, let's just go down to $500 a piece. So $12,000 a year for those 2 vehicles. Then add on the gas. What are we talking? $2,000, $3,000, $4,000? Add in insurance. You got another 30 grand there. Now, let's say you're the average person buying a nice house, like a $500,000 home in a place with good schools. Well, what do you get charged for that? Well, right now it's almost 7% interest. And by the way, if you think the government's screwing you over, well, the people keeping the interest rates high are. That's not the president. But all the same, that situation is 6% times $500,000 with $500,000 compound interest on the first year. You paid 30 grand, just poof gone. So 30 grand poof gone in the first year of your $500,000 nice little home with good schools. And then how much you lost on that commuting cost? Another 30,000. You've already lost over 60,000. I bet with all the subscriptions and all the other crap you do, yeah, you lost probably another 10,000 to stupid crap or more. So people say, why are people spinning their wheels throughout the course of their life? Because of the way your life is structured. Oh, let's not forget, what if you went to college on a loan and you got those student loans to pay? Or what about if you got a credit card? Yeah, you're going to be broke all the time because you're working your life in reverse. As were what I just told you, how to be retired by the age of 30. Live as minimalistically as possible when you're young. While you're still in high school, get a good trade as a backup plan while it still exists. Get a CDL because it's an apartment on wheels. If you have a job where you can work on site, get yourself an RV or a van, get yourself a gym membership for showers, however you can avoid paying rent. Like, look, if you're paying $1,500 or whatever for rent, then utilities included, there's like about $2,000 altogether. Then figure in your commuting costs and all that crap. You're just robbing yourself. And they don't teach you this in school. They don't teach you this when you're a young 20-something. They give you this line of BS of your 20s are to be enjoyed. What I'm telling you can have you retired by the age of 30, because investing when you're young, if every 100,000 at a 10%, and I'm not going to tell you what to invest in, you can figure that out. There's tons, like you can make 10% all day, every day with no work in the market. If you got 100,000 because you didn't pay rent, you didn't pay bills, you lived it, like if it was trucking, and trucking won't be around forever. Eventually everything will be driving itself, but we're a long ways away from that because God forbid someone hack one of those vehicles, even a Tesla, and they cause, an incident. So my point of it is that while that gold mine's still there is lots of opportunities to get rich in America. And, if you're making $100K a year, after a few years working at a decent trucking company or a plumbing company, and you're not paying hardly anything for rent, whether it's the house of mom and dad, or if it's a share room with bunk beds, I don't care how you got to do it. Whether if you manage to sneak yourself to living in a storage unit, a tent, I don't care. Van life, I don't care how you do it. But the lower you get your expenses, the more profit you have, and you invest your money. Every 100,000 is 10%. Most people on Social Security don't even get over $20,000 a year. So 200,000 is already Social Security money working for you. Your money making you money. You do it for like 5 or 6 years, you got $500,000, you got 50 grand coming in every year, and that goes on top of each other. And in 2 years, you'd have 600 grand. Some of this is tax deductible because it's retirement planning. And then go to the Midwest, pay cash for a piece of land or house. Well, houses cost money. No, they cost a lot in the cities. Go look at those small towns, Google Maps, look at it. Look at the town, look at what real estate cost. You can work 1 year and pay cash for a house. Won't new, but does it matter? You outright own it. You'll never have to make a payment again. Then you buy yourself a brand new car and maybe take a little, if you feel like still working, you just work a little local job part-time. And then you spend the rest of your life, assuming you and Honey Poo both did this, you'll actually be able to spend more time with your children, more time with your family, and you'll have legacy wealth in one generation. You can start out dirt poor in America. You could start out as a legal immigrant coming from another country. And in 7 to 10 years, you can be retired in America. Now, I just told you in about 15 minutes what most people will never tell you. So, by the way, God that I don't believe in, I've done my duty for the world. Whether people listen or not, I understand the whole concept of Habakkuk, trying to do the impossible. You don't know who Habakkuk is, look up the name. And look up Project Habakkuk when they tried to make Berg ships back during World War II. It's a really cool project, Project Habakkuk. But look, I've tried for years to get people to be into a better situation where they could retire younger. And for one thing I've noticed, whenever I bring this issue up, YouTube tries to censor it. Why is that? Why is it they want you to be poor your whole life? Why is it they feed you hatred? And by the way, all your politics, all your anger, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the objective in life. People will use your rage. They'll use your happiness and your rage against you. I'm not kidding. They'll weaponize your politics to get you to waste your life doing something that does not matter. They'll weaponize your joy, your fear. They'll use you against you because they profit every time you're spinning your wheels throughout your life. Now, when I was a kid growing up in a town where the unemployment nationally was this, it was double that where I grew up. Too many good men, not enough good jobs. Logging crash that happened back in the early 90s when the government changed the rules. I never knew anything but what I grew up in, and that was normal. So whether you grow up in a broke-ass part of America in the counties of Appalachian coal mines, or you're raised in the hood, yeah, you can still make it. You just got to use your mind. You got to have self-control. You actually have to be human. And you got to kick all this desire to impress other people who, frankly, honest to God, they do not care about you. Your friends, your family will slow you down. And if they truly love you, they'll teach you what I just said. And they'll encourage you to do what I just said. But if they try to hold you back, you have to let people go. And I'm sorry, that sounds horrible. And even people with kids can pull off what I've done. Families can come together, grandparents, children, everybody working together. You don't believe me? Look at like traditionalist communities like the Amish. How is it they can build a house and yet it takes you 30 years to pay it off? They just get the community together and make it happen. Everyone can do that too. But look, I understand that most of this is pearls before swine. But God, I don't believe in him, but I prayed to that invisible man upstairs one time. And I said, if you get me unstuck from this mud hole when there was nobody around, and I used my brain to get myself out of it, I'll do some good for the world. And there you go. Anyways, I'll probably start putting more of my content on other channels, other formats, because frankly, I'm just tired of, the whole censorship. I'm tired of the nonsense. I'm tired of all the tweener people that are like perpetually offended individuals that have nothing better to do. And honestly, I've got a lot of life to live while I'm still around. I'm going to have fun. So peace.